And again, this hologram around us, could this be bent too in a different type of technology of hacking your visual cortex, your ear canals, the stem from your brain, and plugging something like, really, if that is able to be hijacked in a wireless fashion, then your literal reality around you can be distorted, where you think when you're standing here in front of something that that's your true reality, that it's being bent, manipulated, morphed, and you're actually seeing a holographic presence of what somebody wants you to see, and you think that's your own reality.
So these are thousands of freighters, boats, and other things out there turning off their transponders, removing the equipment, trying to circumnavigate the globe without being part of the super surveillance net. Well, things like this will end that immediately, because they won't even realize that they have the tech on board. It'll be in a ballast.
And I also was taking notes earlier. If I may read from a pre-prepared note, COVID was a forced collapse. This is a controlled collapse of the remnants. You know, there's a major something on right at the cusp. There's too many overlapping scatter wave pattern stories that are the genre, from the economy to the politics to the society to the movie stars to the sports betting. The scandals are everywhere. I mean, as far as you look, there's like a major, gigantic, unbelievable, like story of the year story, all simultaneously happen across all genres of all news simultaneously right now. So what is coming is the question. So, Ransom, I appreciate you joining me tonight. Ransom Godwin in the house with me here.
Not only do they filter the news, the law enforcement has been filtering the crimes. So, I thought back about
crime.
this.
That's a great t-shirt. Filter the crime.
Right, filter it out. I was thinking a lot about last week and how we talked about these flock cameras and how they just popped up everywhere in a lot of rural areas now. And I went around driving and looking at them and stuff, and some of them are put in places I can understand, and then others are in weird spots that are really just there to catch the amount of people going through a specific intersection. I went to go look at the physical locations because on the map it looked like they were right at the grocery stores and stuff, so they're offset a little bit. But I found out that there was this program in Albuquerque in which the flock and the government got together and the law enforcement, and they offered local businesses to join their network of cameras and stuff. So, and then I was thinking, it's really weird that they let crime go rampant for a couple of years, and then they offer this program to help tamp down the crime if you'll just hand over all of your feeds of your personal surveillance and your homes and your businesses, and then the police have a direct link, basically, where I want to know what's going on over at Zales Jewelry, and they go bink and they can see who's going in there. So on the back side of that, if you get people used to allowing their feeds to be given to the government, they can add filters of facial recognition and all of these things. And matter of fact, when you look at the overall net that they're creating with the financials and the food dependency and the digital IDs and the camera systems everywhere intertwined, along with, we've got, I've shown you things that are out there, but are probably out there being installed right now. And that's like the Wi-Fi surveillance, the 5G and going to 6G towers that everybody were worried about doing this or that. But one thing that no one's arguing about is that they are a major component of the track and trace system worldwide. It's going up everywhere. A massive upgrade. If you've ever seen that movie GoldenEye, where their supercomputer that the government holds started tapping everything, including sciences that people kind of aren't aware of, like you can watch a video that has no audio and get the transcript of what the people are saying on there based on vibrations around them. So there's some really high-tech surveillance that just people don't have a clue that's already being built and established. And then on the other
can
end,
I throw one at you?
Yeah,
you and I
for it.
both know Lee Wheelbarger.
Yeah.
He was the one who invented that laser technology that from like 2 miles away with a laser, you could touch on a window on a building and listen to the conversation in between. That's why there's triple pane glass now that we put in all of our facilities, military and especially embassies, so they can't use that same laser technology. But you got to realize, how many years ago was that? 20?
Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
even more. That they were using lasers to actually touch the glass and get the vibrations of somebody speaking in a room off a single window. That isn't, you
yeah.
take it that far, and we're that's 20, 25 years ago. And especially, like you mentioned, 5 years ago, it was unthinkable that you'd use cameras or allow anybody to tap into those. 15 years ago was truly unthinkable that you let people poop on the steps, poop on the street, like ask people for change, drive business. That was truly unthinkable. Like if you were to just drop back in a time machine 15 years, which most of us can remember that, like that was an unacceptable way of life, period.
Yeah. You know, that laser is just one of many technologies that do the same thing. About probably 10 years ago, I watched a video where they had an algorithm that would use people's earbuds, like that you use for, phones and music players, MP3 players, and the disc on there, the little diaphragm on the speaker, could pick up everything within 100-meter circumference of vibration. So everything going on, all the conversations, it's just who has these, and how do they want to use them? It's obviously not at the same time as it being person by person. It's also not really. It's more of a wide sweeping data recovery thing that they use for that. So as we go in the future, things are going to be difficult to maintain a lifestyle like we're used to right now. So at some point, something has to happen that makes people accept the transfer, and not only their behavior, but their lifestyle, their freedoms, their privacy, all of that. There has to be a singularity in the public worldwide. Maybe each country might have, a different trigger, but it's going to amount to the same thing. So whether they're far left communist or far right capitalist, they're all going to the same road. The technology is what's happening. It's something that I think is happening so fast, humans don't know how to deal with it, except for the controllers think they do.
Yeah, and when I'll add something in there, as this progresses incredibly fast, everybody is going to be demanding a safety net. Like a few years ago, it was unthinkable that there'd be universal basic income in all the societies, and that's the way that people would survive. And you were thinking that is absolutely impossible. 10 years ago, if I were to say UBI is going to be there because AI is going to take everybody's job in as little as 10 years, you would shake your head and go, that you are absolutely smoking crack, dude. You got to stop. But I would agree with your Ransom. They are going to absolutely be banging at the walls of the castle, demanding universal basic income because there will be so few jobs out there. But same thing, double-edged sword, that comes with requirements, the things you must do to continue to access that money. Now, we're seeing a microcosm of it where the EBT system is being revamped. So what has also currently happened is, since the benefits were turned off, many states are now saying you have to reapply. When you reapply, you have to prove you're a U.S. citizen.
Right.
So, I mean, we're seeing this, but it's a microcosm of, all right, well, things have changed tremendously for EBT recipients where they're going to have to reapply, change the way they do their daily lives. Some of it's going to go away poof in the night for the abusers. Others are going to get more funds because that is going to just kind of funnel somewhere else into real hands that need it. Like there's going to be an entire restructuring, just like we're seeing the entire restructuring of our entire world happen in real time right now. Now we're just seeing another micro layer of it with the EBT system here. But I promise you, as people are going to be begging for the UBI, they're going to be begging for it. Safety net, please. Society's falling apart. We got no other way, please. And then if a war kicks off, hi, almighty.
Right. And this is the kind of stuff that's going to lead to that.
I saw this article. I was shocked. I hope you have the video that comes with it.
Let's see here.
Well, Sam Altman didn't want to answer the question.
Let's see if that's on here.
He's like, oh, you don't believe it? I'll buy your shares back. That was his answer.
Right. Well, this is part of the great log off that I was talking about. It not only went for, people in cubicles everywhere processing data for various reasons, but literally humans are building the system that replaces them. And we brought it up before. It's not unlike when Walt Disney World, went to the system of hiring people from somewhere else and then having the current employees train them to replace them and then fire them and then pay the other people a lesser wage for the same work. But now,
until they get AI'd out, and then we'll
right,
get little robots cruising around.
right now we're at the extreme.
Yeah, welcome to Disneyland.
We're at the extreme where the programmers and coders, and you remember there was a meme and a little saying going back, probably 5 or 6 years ago, learn to code. Well, unfortunately for those millions of people that have jobs coding and programming, they're kind of redundant now. So what happens when you have a world where all of those people have been fired, laid off of their work, and now the AI and the companies have shrank down to only a few contenders that control it, basically centralized artificial intelligence. But not only that, all of the world's powers right now are trying to fight for what it gets to say, what the AI is allowed to say. What can it actually tell you? How can it transform your life? That is being filtered. So you imagine some, I don't know, really smart kid that's at home and he's using the AI to do complex mathematics that he might use to do a real world science project. And then you realize that a lot of the technology's out. If you're up to date and modern with technology, they are very easy to do at home. And I think that's why in the late 90s, early 2000s, you saw Radio Shack and all its millions of components and parts and catalogs disappear, because that was right before the robotic revolution. And they wanted to make sure that the everyday average Joe at home doesn't have power over that system. And now we fast forward in the future, and it's being dwindled down to monopolies of who gets to do it. And at the end, it'll be the governments, obviously, that are in the final vote of what gets to be said or revealed, or what you're allowed to use it for, what the processing power is. And we've talked about that too. If we go to a global war, it boils down to a war of processing power.
Who's the end? That would be funny, is because they were making fun of the coal miners in West Virginia. So imagine if there was like one or two coal miners that are, I am going to learn to code. And then they got on the coding and they learned to code, but they saw it ahead of everybody else at ChatGPT, and they were in there day one. And then all of a sudden they're writing, doing thing. And then they write their report and go, you know what? I just took your job using AI. You need to learn to coal mine. Click. Because the trades will be coming back and is sweeping around like that. If you are that person that got that demeaning message, learn to code, and you took it to heart, and you learned how to code so well that you were ahead of the next steps on AI, and you put reporters out of business that told you to learn to code, please contact us. I want to have you on the show. That would be such an amazing story to hear it from, like how you'd seen the future, jumped in front of the future, and then outmaneuvered the scoundrel maneuverers. That'd be a great story to have on the show here. So if you know anybody that did that and put reporters out of work, I'd love to hear it. Yeah, what's going to be next? The trades. I was listening to Mike Adams earlier, and he was saying that those who are going to be able to recycle metals out of disused buildings, that is going to be a skill to have that will be right at the very top there. Now, you can dismantle, 100-story buildings, or you can go in and dismantle 2-story homes or whatever. But it's all going to come down to this insatiable, unbelievable need for power and metals to continue this AI march forward. And again, you hit it on the head. There shall be one. The Highlander, I think Highlander was just more of like a glimpse into how AI is going to function across the planet. There really can be only one. There can be only one.
Here it is, more of it here. Police surveillance using new technologies. And, if you're a normal citizen and you're worried about crime and you see in the crime, and like most people, you can notice that the crime has moved into the areas where people also live. So it's not, segregated to downtown anymore in a lot of places. You're going to beg for the police to do something. The problem is that this problem reaction solution has been going on for a long time. So all of this is just like if you own a window repair company and then you pay a kid, $15 to go around town and bust everybody's windows out with some rocks. Then all of a sudden everybody needs windows, and you're the only one selling them. But this is the same thing right here. They are building a police state. There's no other way to say it. And, privacy concerns seem to be going out of the window because the tech is evolving faster then their ability to complain about it, bring it to your government with grievance, and for them to legislate, that could take 10 years. And by that time, all of it's antiquated and out of date and obsolete. And there's some other new tech that's already hitting the market. Like we started messing with those commercials, but now I've seen some. I'm still pretty good at catching what's AI, but it's becoming mind-blowingly believable. So now when I'm watching the local news, I don't know. Is that really happening? I can't tell. Being truthful with critical thinking, knowing that people can produce these things now, images, sounds, it's hard to believe that anybody did anything when they say that this is happening. And then at the same time, the headlines are becoming more and more bizarre. It's all TMZ, National Enquirer type,
Yeah, that
society. And
is
it's,
the news now. We're living in idiocracy, man. Look at this feed in Telegram called Neural Fan, and it is mind-blowing AI graphics. Not really people. It's more like cats doing things, fishes jumping through, like just the most incredible animated scenes of anything you could possibly put your mind to. A fish swimming near light speed through a submerged city from 3,000 years ago, like this kind of thing. Whoosh. It is so realistic. It is so realistic. But then the Sora AI, which you're referencing in there, and how it is getting to the point now, the public, what they're giving us in technology is, many years behind what it truly is. So the speed we're seeing this thing jump leaps and bounds from, you could definitely catch it last year, 6 months ago. Well, yeah, you definitely see it's improved, but now we're at borderline where it's almost indistinguishable. So if there was, if this tech really was given to us 15 or 20 years after the fact, or 50 years, can you imagine how good it is now? Even if we have a 2-year-old or 1-year-old version of, like, let's say, even like at the bare minimum, what we see in public is at least a year behind what it really is in the corporate world. And that's being generous. It would be indistinguishable by now. A year ahead in this tech is, you don't know really the difference between reality and what is, unless you're physically standing there. And again, this hologram around us, could this be bent to in a different type of technology of hacking your visual cortex, your ear canals, the stem from your brain, and plugging something, like, really, if that is able to be hijacked in a wireless fashion, then your literal reality around you can be distorted, where you think when you're standing here in front of something that's your true reality. Then it's another layer deeper, that it's being bent, manipulated, morphed, and you're actually seeing a holographic presence of what somebody wants you to see, and you think that's your own reality, versus stepping back on the AI side of things. How far ahead is this tech right now?
I
Cottage
think
industry quietly manipulating. Okay.
I think it's more far spread than people realize. And the reason I say that, if you remember a couple of years ago, about 2020, and we were getting those funky pictures of what may or may not be in people's bodily fluids after they took a certain medication. And I looked at it and I said, and I know you remember this conversation, that, it seems that for the years prior to that, probably 5 years or more, certain things were being accumulated in the human body, like plastics, heavy metals, all the things that you would literally need to build a chip inside of your body remotely. Now, this is talking about all the countries of the world, all of the superpowers. This is what we were talking about earlier. They all are spending billions trying to control what comes out of these chat GPT machines. And then in the backdrop of that, you see the Shark Tank of different companies being eaten up by the larger companies. And you were saying that there can only be one. Well, that may be the way that the government is going too. And, China unveils jellyfish like surveillance robot for silent underwater missions. Now, what this article doesn't tell you is, ideas like, whenever these big old shipping container boats and other big shipping boats pull into dock, even the oil ones, all of them do, they fill up their ballast with water sometimes, and they let the water out. Well, when they do that, thousands of jellyfish get caught in there, and they've been having a problem about different species being deposited in places that they shouldn't be in the ocean. I've read the Save the Earth articles about we're messing up the world with fossil fuels and shipping and blah, blah, blah. But what they don't tell you in this article is the same way that those jellyfish travel, you could accidentally, I don't know, put a couple of these jellyfish right up in there with the school of them. And then you can now,
You would put thousands.
yeah, well, now you can track every boat that goes into every lane. And remember, I think it was about 6 months ago, I read an article talking about the ghost fleet of the invisible trafficking and trading networks that are going on. So these are thousands of freighters, boats, and other things out there turning off their transponders, removing the equipment, trying to circumnavigate the globe without being part of the super surveillance net. Well, things like this will end that immediately because they won't even realize that they have the tech on board. It'll be in a ballast. Nobody goes down there. That's not a place that a person or something goes down in. And then someone's going to have to invent something that goes in there and scans for those things and destroys them. And this thing's made out of what? It's robotics made out of the hydrogel platform, which is basically combining organic type materials with synthetic type materials. So the whole world is literally under a distraction that's not a reality. It's not happening. But there is some very interesting things happening and evolving in the background. And one of those things is the slow.
Well, that hydrogel platform, I've heard of this in many other different applications, but this is the first time I've actually seen it in a real physical object in front of us.
Well, then you got to think, are you talking macro or micro kind of? Basically, these are big things made out of,
Well, micro subdermal kind of
yeah,
thing.
but the hydrogel platform is basically nanotech that can deliver things on a microscopic level as well. So a lot of medicines are going down that route, synthetic DNA, all of that stuff. It's the medium in which you can build things and operate them.
And catch these. There's a large demand in China for different kind of dried sea cucumbers, different
Yeah.
jellyfish for medicinal purposes. Like, at what point do people that are harvesting these jellyfish just they catch them and that is what they try to turn into another byproduct that's sold on to the Zhongyao or Chinese medicine, herbal market? What happens when these fishermen start pulling up these hydrogel jellyfish and they're like, yo, you think there's a market for this in China? Like, what?
Right.
The fishermen are going to absolutely see this and be like, this thing is not real. I mean, it is real physically, but they're like, bro, this is not because I've heard about those insects also that are micros, very small insect, looks like flies, but they're robots.
Right.
And unless you smack one with a fly swatter and then examine under the wings and notice that it's not a fly, if you cracked a fly, most times people either let it drop on the floor or they sweep it up real quick, but they're not examining it, thinking it might be an actual transmission robot or a robot of some sort. That's beyond most people's even thought. Like, every insect that you hit in the summertime, it could be a robot, and we need to examine every one closely. That's getting, it's taking too many marshmallows to the picnic, man.
Well, and then you have the problem of people that don't understand things in the public. So I'm sure you've come across the fake birds conspiracy phenomenon where people were literally killing poor little birds and then they would open them up and not see a lot of blood, not realizing that, a little finch or sparrow probably only has like 10 drops of blood total in the poor little animal. They're like, look, it's fake. It's fake. It's not a real. Well, now they don't really seem that crazy now that there are these products flying around. Yeah, and this talks about a hydrogel electrode material specifically built for this project. And think about how small it is, 4.7 inches. It's pretty small. It only weighs a couple ounces. And this is on the big scale. Like you said, they have a robot that steers sperm into an egg. We're talking, two different worlds of technology. And people really can only understand what they see for the most part. Like, if they see it, they believe it. But how do you see and believe things that are on the microscopic cell that you need complex equipment, electron microscopes, and different stuff like that to even see in the first place?
Yeah, it makes you wonder how the ancients left us so much iconography, stone carvings, these sort of things, as signals that they understood that even way back then. Comment about the birds. We've been taking a few ducks for meat here, and these beautiful cayuga, absolutely stunning cayuga males. They got a green head like a mallard, and they got black feathers, but inside there's iridescent green and blue feathers. Like, wherever, sometimes they'll glint on the sun, and you're like, oh man, that is like an actual physical blue sapphire and green emerald they're walking through the sun, like the most magnificent colors that these birds. But when you flip them over and the wings do that, you know, you see some of those videos where the person had done something with a pigeon wing and they're like, look, there's writing on it. When you get the wings over on some of these incredibly beautiful ducks and these types of birds and chickens and whatnot, when you do the wing like that, you can actually see reflective iridescence in it because, well, that's their pattern. So you could mistake that. Oh, there's writing inside there. But I mean, these are our ducks. We got them. We actually got the eggs ourselves from our own ducks when they produced eggs. They were fertilized. We hatched them out. We incubated them, took them to the whole incubation period. Now they're old enough to harvest. So I know that's not a robot duck that we have. So when you turn over the wings and you see that iridescence, like those videos where they do that, please be a little discerning on the information you might want to consume. Like there's a huge amount of beauty in nature and just such like mind-boggling colors that you just wouldn't think. So when birds are flying, you got to think they're trying to escape predators. They're trying to confuse predators from beneath them and above them and behind them. Right? So what kind of color schemes do you need to like reflect something to make, whoa, I thought I saw it there and I attacked in a different direction. You know, that's what all this is about. Is I was going somewhere with the birds, but don't believe everything you see about those videos of an underwing that kind of showed something reflective and iridescent, like, oh, it's got to be a robot. It's not. It's nature. To a point. Now, I know understand what you're saying. Like it could be,
Well,
maybe.
is that fruit we're seeing out there in those bins real fruit? You know, like the questions go on and on, you know,
My
depending on
duck
how deep
real,
you
or
want to
they
get.
implanted a memory of a real duck and it's really a robot.
Right. You know, that's the kind of stuff that kind of I'm talking about. And then everybody, the population, the average Joe has to come back down to earth and stop thinking about those kind of things that are probably happening out there in the world right now. And think about this: uncertainty over federal food aid. And you know what? I do like the fact that normal everyday citizens with money didn't rush to the store and, you know, do what they do if you tell them that there's a cold storm coming. Then they'll go wipe out the food. Weren't you telling me something about some cold stuff going down? And then, you know, before we talk about the weather for a minute, the uncertainty of this shutdown reaches a crisis point. And I was just wondering if they were just going to roll out this DHS facial recognition system right at the grocery stores, the one that they say people can't refuse. The fact is that you will also have to show your face and not be able to refuse facial recognition apps in the future for whatever future law enforcement trend is going on.
This whole EBT thing, you know, again, if they really are pulling people's funds after 48 hours, if they don't use the money, then damn, this is really going to get nasty. And if it continues to get nasty, it's almost like the corporation of the United States has gone bankrupt. And this is literally the just like sale of assets. And it's just going to go and continue down. Because I don't know if a corporation that's out of business can continue to operate as a corporation. So if you think about that, if the corporation of the United States actually was defunct as of that government shutdown date, because it's not the corporation of the United States any longer. It's a bankrupt entity that is going to sell its assets and come back as something new.
Like right now would be a good idea to go shopping for Thanksgiving right now before there is any crazy things, because, you know, later in the month, obviously, people are going to be trying to travel everywhere. They're going to be spending a lot of money. It might be a lot cheaper for you to just stay home this Thanksgiving. A good idea to just wait out their little games that they're playing. And I'm pretty sure that the SNAP benefits was just a game to manipulate the election. You'll see that they'll reopen the government right after these midterm elections are over, or shortly before that, once they got enough people in seats that they wanted them to get in. You know, I think what's about to really happen, and seriously, is that all of the networks of human safety nets have basically dissolved or dwindled down to nothing, to a super corporate dependency state. And when I say corporate, I mean the corporation that you're talking about failing of the United States. It's government dependency. In, you know, when you're talking about 41 million people or 42 million people that are on assistance programs, I know for a fact that some of the assistance programs are set up to make people stay in the system. And what I mean by that is, in certain states, they offer the assistance, but you basically have to be single parents with no job. and you can't have a job because you have the kids. And then in other states, they make sure that you have to try to look for a job to get the help. The problem is they won't let you have the help past the starting point of your new job. So in other words, they arrange it always to be a handout and never a hand up. No one's going out there for getting to work 6 months and bringing in the benefits and then getting ahead and getting on their feet. That's not how it works. If you start working, then they'll cut your benefits and you're basically bringing in the same amount of income as you were when you were unemployed. So for people that are in that situation, it's not in their best interest to go get a job. And besides that,
Yeah, they make it
all of
like that's a very good point, man. That is a very I never thought of that. It's just that
there's
balancing
a
act of still keeping you in that lower rut, man, letting
yeah,
you
it's
versus letting
it's
you get
a
out.
that's always what it amounts to, is a handout, not a hand up. Our style of help and assistance should be a hand up for citizens so that they could become self-dependent. And they don't want that, of course, especially if you can have, let's say a fourth or one fifth of the population swinging in one political direction or another based on what free stuff they get. But yeah, the airline thing that you were talking about, I think that all goes into the fact that we are about to go into a new era, and part of that is what I was going to show you here. So all of those safety nets, basically like community. I don't know if you're part of a church organization or a prepping group or whatever it is. The fact is that that's the minority of people. I mean, of the real small minority of people that actually have some kind of system or friends that have any kind of resources. So most people are up the creek without a paddle, and part of it is because we've become so segregated and tribalized that they've managed to get people down to 4 close friends. Now, if you're a surveillance state that's trying to pay attention to trends, groups, grassroots things, the best way to do that is to have it all sectioned off where people are in very small groups of dependency with each other and the system. And then that way you could also, spy on specific stuff. And this goes all the way to the idea of, ads that are specific for you. They're trying to segregate people all the way down to, and it's funny because the system is anti-individualism, but at the same time, they want to reduce you down to a digit so that you can be digitized.